The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
It's better than indoor plumbing. It's better than electricity. It's better than the thermos bottle. That's right. It's the 2017 Matt Talk Online Digital Fan Guide Division I preview, simply calling it The Guide. Over 200 pages digitally delivered to you March 14th. Pre-sale, pre-orders available now. MattTalkOnline.com/FanGuide17. Listening to this show, you will get $5 off if you use the offer code PODCAST. That's PODCAST. Offer code when you buy it at MattTalkOnline.com/FanGuide17. Over 200 pages of facts, stats, history. Every single wrestler competing in St. Louis, every single score all season long. History, 4-time All-Americans, 3-time national champions. Who's got the most All-Americans all time? Which coach has the most titles? How do they rank top 10? Everything in this guide, digitally delivered, optimized for your tablet and iPad, but it works just fine on your computer. And if you feel like going to Kinko's, you can print it out. It's going to be a lot of paper. But anyway, retailing at $19.99. You listen to this show, and any show on the Matt Talk Podcast Network with regularity, use the promo code, I'm going to say it really lightly now, podcast. Yep, use podcast. That way I know you're listening. You'll save $5. It is worth it. ESPN loves it. You've heard my sound bites on other shows about how much Adam Amin used this thing when he was with ESPN. I'm going to stop belaboring the point right now, and we'll get to our show. But MattTalkOnline.com/FanGuide17, the guide. This thing, the most unbelievable Division I preview guide ever assembled, and it just keeps getting better every year. You'll want it for your fantasy contests. You'll want it for your knowledge bombs. You'll want it sitting there in the arena going, okay, hey, who's this guy? Boom, there he goes. Also got tweet your direct social media stuff right to it. It's an interactive guide. You'll be able to pop up a podcast that's related to who's going on and what's going on. You'll want to get this. MattTalkOnline.com/FanGuide17, promo code podcast. Save yourself $5. You will not regret it.
You've always got time for short time.
Hey, it's Mario Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine. The one and only Chael Sonnen. And you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
Deviating from the norm with Coach Kevin Dresser today on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. No longer going to be part of that other show here on the network. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Kevin Dresser joining us now on the program. If you've been living under a rock for the past, 24 to 36 hours, Iowa State has made a move and hired this guy as the new head wrestling coach. They take the reins as soon as the NCAA tournament is over in Ames, Iowa. Coach Dresser, welcome to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, not the other show we used to do.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 2 weeks to say the least.
So before we started, you told me how many text messages you got the day of the press conference. How many are we up to?
When I got back to my phone, about 168. So I guess that's so if I don't get back to anyone, good gosh, I apologize, but I don't know if I can do that I'm in Ames right now and just trying to do some administrative stuff. So it's been overwhelming to say the least. I guess a good overwhelming, but still overwhelming.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there and I figured everybody and their mother was going to blow you up on Sunday. So we scheduled this after the press conference, after the initial busyness. So let's just take us through. We'll circle back with the process, but since the press conference, you'd spoken about a social in Ankeny. I mean, what was the day like as soon as you got done and the introductions from Jamie Pollard were done? I mean, take us through that next 12 hours on what it was like for being the head coach at Iowa State.
Well, after the press conference, there was some interviews and some pictures and some stuff like that, and eventually a team meeting at 3:30, and followed up by a stop at the president's house. And so I got home to my brothers in Ankeny for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, caught up with my family, and then we went into Ankeny, and real nice area, called the district venue, and we had a lot of cyclones show up. We had a social that went from probably, I guess I got there at 6:45 and left at 9. So it was kind of a who's who of Iowa State wrestling, including Dan Gable, Jim Gibbons, and all kinds of big name cyclones. So it was a good way to relax a little bit last night. Everybody had a few drinks and had some good food and good fellowship, and just a fun group to hang out with.
You had said in your press conference that getting the job at Iowa State was vastly different from getting the job at Virginia Tech. There are obvious reasons behind that, but from a coaching standpoint, what were the differences between the two positions? You were courted by Virginia Tech as well, but not so much as flying in football coaches to do the selling.
No, much different process. Obviously, my resume improved quite a bit, so I went from a kind of an emergency hire to a different hire. But both situations, I think would be fair to define as starting over. So I know I'm starting over again. I did it at Christiansburg High School, and I did it at Virginia Tech, and now I'm doing it in Ames. So still starting over, I guess.
Are there any similarities? You know, they talked about being a program builder. You know, Grundy got the ball rolling. You took it over, and then boom, there's success at the high school level. Then when you take over Christiansburg, after, you know, people wondered back in the 20-some years ago, why would you leave Grundy? You were winning, firing on all cylinders, and you take over a program at Christiansburg High School that was decent, but it wasn't a powerhouse by any means. There was a little bit of tradition, but you built that program into a high school powerhouse. And what are the differences that one's got to know about with building a high school program essentially from scratch and then taking a college team from scratch and placing them in that upper echelon of teams? I mean, what are you going to have to do at Iowa State that's maybe similar to Christiansburg and Virginia Tech?
I think it's first off just getting to know the culture and the environment and the people that you have to work with, everything from administratively and obviously integrating your coaching staff, and then even at the booster level and the fan level is just getting everybody on board. And ultimately, the head coach gets a lot of credit for success, but I really, defer that to your coaching staff and your support staff and your fan base, and everything makes it all. It's all got to work, and so that's what we've got to do here as well.
You know, this was a fast 2 weeks, and Jamie Pollard made the point that he really had to sell your family on this. I mean, of course, people, if I'm single and 25, I can get up and go wherever I want. I've got nobody to worry about except myself. When you're now married with children, instead of me saying, okay, babe, I'm going to go do this, no, I have to have a discussion. So when that decision or the offer comes or the interest comes, when you have to sit down with your family and talk about it, I mean, how much were they? I mean, obviously, if they say they don't want to go, you might still be in Blacksburg.
Yes, and so I call it a leap of faith on their part. And I made the joke at the press conference yesterday that they've leaped over, but they leap back every now and then too. So I was very clear with them that, hey, we don't have to do this as a complete family right away. And I would like to do that, and I think they would like to do that, but also, I've got 3 kids in high school, and so I've got a daughter that's getting ready to be a senior next year at Auburn High School, and I don't want to take her out of that senior year if she doesn't want to go. I've got another daughter that's supposed to be a freshman at Virginia Tech next year, so she's kind of looking at whether she's going to go to Virginia Tech or Iowa State. My son's he's only a freshman. He's a little bit more eager to get out here maybe, but so that's a leap of faith on their part. I know their first impressions of Jamie Pollard and Iowa State, and then being out here for the last, they just flew out this morning back to Virginia, has been positive, but it's still a change and still a move. And but I think deep down it'll be good for them. I think it's good to sometimes get out of your comfort zone and grow and learn and adapt, and that's what I like to do too as well. And so. Hopefully at the end of the day, I'm making them better and stronger people, and it's going to be all good. I'm sure we'll have some bumps, but I think that they seem excited about it. There's going to be days that they're probably going to miss Virginia, but it's nothing that's a for sure they've got to be out here on a certain date. There's no timeline.
As we look at the decisions and everything that came through it, and when it was first hinted that you were a candidate, the first thing I thought of was like, well, his name comes up for jobs, but he's lived in Virginia for 30 years, wife and kids. You've got all that, you've got that infrastructure there, you've got those roots, whatever you want to call them, depending on where you're from in Virginia, and you've also, not to get too personal with some things, but we've known each other for 20 plus years. There's also the business aspect of things outside of wrestling that you've also got to deal with when you move across country.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, and luckily I'm not as heavily involved in real estate as I was maybe in 2001, 2002. I really downsized, and my focus has been at Virginia Tech Wrestling. But being in the real estate business isn't something you can just jump right out of, and wisely. If you do, it's probably not going to work out for you. So I've had some success, and I've had some really major screw ups in real estate. So right now, I don't manage a lot of real estate like I did. So I still do have some management, and I'll always be kind of back and forth to Virginia, but nothing that's going to take from my time here at Iowa State now.
Now, the timeline, there were some reports that this was allegedly a done deal Thursday, Friday, and Jamie Pollard says that you gave him the ring on Saturday, saying, "Hey, I'm seriously looking at considering this." When were you deciding the right time to meet with your team at Tech and say, "Hey, this is a distinct possibility"? And was there a final decision following the Nebraska duel, which I'm guessing had to be super emotional for you and the team?
Yeah, it was. I initially said no. It was actually 2 weeks ago today that Jamie and his crew flew to see my family and I, and so that's kind of really when things got going. We had a phone conversation a couple days before, and we were going to kind of do, get some people on the phone, and then at the 11th hour, Jamie and his crew decided to fly out. So it was 2 weeks ago today that they flew into Reiner, Virginia. Or I guess they flew into Roanoke and drove to Reiner, Virginia, but that's how it all kind of started, and that was a Thursday, and they really wanted, because of all the situations that they were involved in with releases and NLIs and keeping kids and not wanting recruits to leave, that they really needed an answer. I mean, they put up a really good offer, and they really wanted an answer by Sunday. And so I called them back. I said, I need an extra day. I called them back Monday and said, I can't take the job. It's just my reason for not taking the job the first time is I hadn't had enough time to really spend with my family. My daughter was gone all that weekend, one of my daughters. And so I wanted to make sure they were all on board, and I didn't want it to be a one-day conversation. So kind of turned the job down on Monday morning and said, hey, can you wait and, give me some time till after nationals? And they said, yeah, we can do that, but we're opening it up. We're interviewing everybody. And that was the way we left it on Monday morning. And then, I really kind of was begging for more time, but I understood they had a timeline. So that's why when this finally went down, the whole timing of it wasn't great. So as we got further into the week, Saturday, I think around noon, I sent out a text again and said, hey, if it's not too late, I want to have a discussion and talk about it. The job's still open. And so, Jamie was great. He said, I look at your schedule. I know you got a match tomorrow night against Nebraska. He said, let's line up a time to communicate after that. He said, I'm excited that you're interested again, but I want to get you through this. And so we had a conversation. Okay, so we'll talk after the Nebraska match. Obviously, his text was real promising on Saturday back to me that he was excited. And, I think we can make this happen, but let's get through Nebraska. And then we talked Sunday night, and he offered me the job. I accepted it, and went in and told my team talked to my team on Monday afternoon. Actually talked to them on Saturday because obviously all of the scuttlebutt and all of the leaks, and sometimes I guess it all takes is one person to come out and say, hey, it's done, and then everybody jumps on and thinks it's done. But maybe the fact that I had reached out and just expressed interest again was enough to get it going. I don't know, but that's kind of the timeline.
So going into that Nebraska match with the news out, and I dropped something out saying that you had not yet accepted the position, and we had talked about there was an offer on the table, and of course, we had had a couple conversations prior to the duel. But when that, what was the mood in the locker room? And obviously the guys know that this stuff is out there. What's the discussion before the Nebraska match to try to keep the guys focused? Of like, hey, don't worry about this right now. We've got something to do here with Nebraska.
Well, I guess when the so-called, first story, on Saturday broke, we were actually in practice. Coach Roby and Zadok and St. John were all out of town traveling, coming back from various things. So I was running practice on that Saturday, and the story kind of broke. And I told them, at the beginning of practice that, hey, I just literally heard like right before we were going, it was a short practice that day, only like an hour. I said, there's a lot of stuff coming out. You guys know I was very honest with you that I was very honest with them before practice that I had an interest in the Iowa State job, and I gave them the reasons. I said, but whatever comes out now, I said, I haven't accepted anything. And by the time practice got over, it was literally within an hour and a half. By the time everybody was getting ready to shower, it was going crazy. So I pulled them all back in, and I got a little emotional and told them that, that I was really interested in the job, and, I was going to have a discussion with them, a serious discussion, and I had a tough choice to make, and just asked them to try to understand. And I, more than anything, apologized because it was right before the, big match they had the next day. But I made sure that I communicated to them that I just believed in them, and they were so daggone tough that they needed to worry about Sunday and not worry about this. And I emphasized that over and over. And Coach Zadok did the same thing before the match. On Sunday, when we talked to him, we both talked to him. All of us talked to him, the coaching staff, before we went out and stepped on the mat Sunday night against Nebraska. And obviously, we wrestled pretty dang good that night. So, that's probably one of the reasons that ultimately helped me make my decision, because I knew I had a timeline. If I didn't take the offer, it was going to be gone. And so I just had so much faith in the staff, the guys, Coach Roby, Coach Zadok, Coach St. John, and my team, that I knew these guys were just rock solid. I mean, you don't put that much time in and let a story or a news release bother you that much. So these guys are locked and loaded, and man, they wrestled great Sunday night.
When it comes time to make the change, and then there's the decision, there was the question on, okay, do you finish out the season? Do you, what's Iowa State going to do? We've now learned that Coach Jackson is stepping away for the postseason, and Travis Paulson will have the reins as the interim tag for the next couple of weeks. But was this a mutual decision between you and Virginia Tech AD Whit Babcock? I mean, I on our conversations, you were hinting that you were pretty much going to cut clean right then and there. So one, was the decision mutual? What were the opinions on both sides? And two, how do you take to maybe the detractions that say, this you're cutting out on your team?
Well, I had a good conversation. I mean, Whit knew, Mr. Babcock knew that I was very interested in the Iowa State job, and he also made it very clear that when I accept it, that's it. You're either on one side or the other, and I get that. That makes sense to me. I guess ideally I would have liked to stay with them all the way through the NCAA tournament, but I understand it, especially, as each day goes on, I understand it. And the last thing I want to do is be a distraction to them. And obviously I had a job to do. I'm already in Ames. I'm already working. So it made a lot of sense. So trust me, there's no hard feelings there. Do I miss them? Yeah, I miss them. I can't wait to watch the ACCs, and I can't wait to watch the NCAA tournament. You don't spend that much time with guys to not be in love with them. And so I'm in love with them, and I'm excited to watch them compete. But, I'm sure the criticism is going to be the timing of it all. I think I've explained myself why the timing went the way it was. I really would have not left at the time I did if I didn't think they were ready. So if this job would have came up 4 years ago, I would have not left, even as much as, as special as this job is. I wouldn't have left because I didn't think we were ready. We weren't where we needed to be. I just didn't feel like, I'd done enough at Virginia Tech. And I feel like, not that I've done enough, but I just feel like now walking out, the program's really established itself as a top tier program in the United States, and the record speaks for itself. And, they're going to have a ton of interest in the job. And it's turned into, it went from a non-factor, non-entity to a wrestling school in 11 years. And so that's pretty cool. And I'm proud that I was a part of that.
And of course, with going back to your home state of Iowa, the last time a coach at Virginia Tech left to go back to this home state of Iowa, we had, a nice little kerfuffle involving transfers and releases, blah, blah, blah. So where is Virginia Tech sitting? Did that discussion come up with Whit Babcock about athletes that may wish to transfer? I don't know if you anticipate any based on what you said about leaving the program, but if that situation does present itself, how are you going to work with Jamie Pollard, and how do you think Jamie Pollard is going to work with Whit Babcock on athletes that may want to follow you to Ames?
I really don't think that's going to be much of an issue. I don't know. I mean, that's not my intent. I'm not calling guys or secret messaging guys to consider Iowa State. I'm not doing that, and I'm 100% above board, transparent, truthful, honest on that. After the NCAA tournament, not just maybe Virginia Tech guys, but that's when everybody kind of starts itching to move around a little bit. We see it more and more every year. So I can't predict the future and what's going to happen after the NCAA tournament. I don't know what's going to happen, but I was very clear with my boss, Chris Helms, and I think Whit was involved in that conversation that, I'm not about that. I chose to start over, and I'm starting over. So, again, I can't predict what happens after the NCAA tournament, but that's not a point in my brain right now.
When you look at the Virginia Tech job now, how relevant is that opening? Should it be officially opened, and should Whit Babcock and crew look for a national search? I mean, how relevant is it? How big of a job is it nationally now?
Well, number one, it's a great job. Great job. It's an awesome place to live. It's an awesome place to work. The people in the building are rock stars, all of them. Just I can't say enough good things about the file. The second part on why and who and all that kind of stuff is no comment. I'm not touching that with 10-foot pole. So whatever they decide to do is their business. I respect that, whether they open it up or don't open it up or who the candidates are. I'm not touching that. That's pretty clear, right? I made that pretty clear.
Yeah. So if you're Whit Babcock, who do you hire for the job at Virginia Tech?
No comment. No, there's obviously, I'm not touching that whole topic at all right now because there's a lot of good, there's some pretty damn good people sitting in the building right now that will be a consideration. So I don't know what the plan is. I really don't know much about it. And I'm just, I'm going totally political on you here. I'm running around the question.
All right, no worries. Now, you talked about the differences in the landscape of college wrestling when you took the job 11 years ago at Virginia Tech, and you focused on the regional training center model quite a bit in the press conference, and that also being a big reason in terms of a factor on how much they're going to invest in the RTC model, just beyond the Cyclone Wrestling Club, which is not the same as an RTC, but you really seem to drive that point home. Why is that so important to be an elite collegiate level wrestling program at the Division I level that needs an RTC? Why is that such a factor these days?
Well, kids like to be able to, there's a lot of kids out there that sign that freestyle is really important. Not everybody, but it's important. So I know having that focus and having really good resources, that means people, teachers, workout schedules, environments that lend ourselves to getting kids ready for world team trials, for Olympic team events. Everything is exciting. And to me, that's just one more component that I want to add. And I just know in conversations the potential, and a lot of that potential, just to be quite frank, is dollars that can get Iowa State to a place where we become really, really not just attractive, but really functional in helping kids reach those goals. And so, it's a great, obviously it's a great recruiting tool, but it's also for postgraduates. It's a great resource. Is that, I believe we can get the right staff in here to develop those guys. So their factors, maybe 5 years as an undergrad, and then maybe 5 years as a postgrad. And that's part of my vision.
When you look back at your career and when you came to a small mining town in Southwest Virginia, which is about 8 hours from Virginia Beach, yet still in the state of Virginia, it's one of the, you can be in New York City from Hampton, Virginia before you can be in Grundy. When you make that move and you have an opportunity to lift a town that's wrestling crazed, did you ever think you would, 25, 30 years later, be in a position where I'm a head college wrestling coach? I mean, how realistic was, one, the Virginia Tech job 25 years ago, and two, the Iowa State job 15 years ago?
Geez, that's, it just shows you life. You never know, it jumps up and surprises you. I think you evolve, especially as a coach, you evolve and your goals change. And I think with me, I guess I've kind of proven that maybe I've got a 10-year shelf life wherever I go, that, just for timing, I've been blessed that opportunities have opened or happened, or I've kind of made opportunities happen. And, but I never know, when I went to Grundy, Virginia, everybody, kind of my family thought I was crazy. I didn't know anybody. Obviously I took a leap of faith when I met a guy named Red Robertson, and he, sold me his vision and what we could do with a high school team. And it just kind of snowballed into more opportunities in Virginia and then Virginia Tech. And here I am. So definitely not a traditional journey.
So at what point with the previous saga where, you said you were kind of an emergency hire in a situation, you said, okay, I'm ready to be a college wrestling coach. I mean, Jamie Pollard stressed the CEO skills, and you've kind of, again, you said in the press conference, you've surrounded people that are better than you at this, better than you at that, better than you at this. I mean, do you feel that, what happens if you don't take the Virginia Tech job? Are you still coaching at Christiansburg? I mean, did you see yourself eventually getting into college coaching again?
No, not really. It's funny. Again, I was kind of at the 10-year shelf life. I just had finished our 10th season at Christiansburg, and I hired this really good guy named Darrell Weber. And, I could tell he was really ready to run a big high school program. And so I was only going to really truly work one more year, and then I was going to turn it over to him. And at that time, I was really managing a lot of real estate. So I really kind of was probably thinking at that time, maybe I'll just get out of wrestling, kind of be his assistant or help. I mean, that's really where my brain was kind of going when the Virginia Tech job opened up. So, I was really maybe close to just being out in 1 year. And then the Virginia Tech job came open, and I'm going, wow, I really thought that was a great opportunity to jump in. And I just felt like always going to Virginia Tech matches when I was at Christiansburg and Grundy, that it could really be something, just because the campus was so beautiful and it's a great part of the country. And, so when they put the resources to it, I really got excited.
Now, of course, it's not an elephant in the room right now, but we have to go through it since it is kind of a hot news item right now, depending on what you're reading on social media. And of course, social media is probably where you've read about it. Any comment on the Pat Downey situation? You're not making personnel changes right now. You said you're not going to do anything until after nationals, but any comment on that particular? Again, let's use the word kerfuffle.
No, I'm really, one thing I was real adamant about with Jamie Pollard, our athletic director here, that when I got hired, is I said the last thing I'm going to do is, I said, he wanted me to meet the team, so I met the team yesterday, but I just told them, and I told him before I even took the job, and I said, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to be involved in anything to do, any decisions, any coaching, any conduct, anything to do with the team before the NCAA tournament, until the NCAA tournament's over. I said, I'll take over, coaching, actually managing the team and managing athletes. So I suggested yesterday that, why don't you put Travis in as the interim, Travis Paulson. And so I think it's good for him to do that. And so whatever happened there in that saga, I had nothing to do with it. That's not my, really, I wanted to hold true to that. And so I'm not going to be in the wrestling room. The wrestling room is in a different building than the offices. So I won't be in the wrestling room until March 20th or whatever that Monday is after the NCAA tournament. I won't even be in the building.
And as we move forward towards your new life back in Iowa, the media access and the media exposure for Virginia Tech, for football is huge, but it's still, the ACC football, it's still basketball country there in Virginia, North Carolina, and whatnot. You're moving back to Iowa wrestling country. You're going to have a lot more requests for media requests and a lot more visibility. Do you feel like you've got to be, you've always been good with knowing how to place words and be a good quote. You've been a good quote since I was 16 years old when I first interviewed you at the state tournament in Salem, but now you're under a microscope more with a much more traditional fan base, not taking anything away from Virginia Tech's rising fan base in wrestling, but it doesn't have the tradition that Iowa State does in terms of wrestling. So you're under a microscope more. How are you going to handle that? There's a little bit more pressure, not just coming into a big-time program, but a big-time program that expects national champions and to contend for a team title.
Yeah, and the expectation, and they didn't hire me here just to have a nice little team. They want to win, and so there is pressure to win. That's okay. I've kind of, for whatever reason, been attracted to pressure, and so I can tell you already with the media and just the I can't catch up, and so yeah, we'll be under the microscope. I'll be under the microscope. I'm going to have to make sure I tweet nice things and not bad things, and watch my P's and Q's in that respect. But it's definitely a difference, I think my kids really saw, and my wife really saw, they've been here the last couple of days. They flew back this morning, but the difference that's, just being in really, really wrestling country. The amount of coverage in the newspapers the last couple of days, and it's just different. And Iowa's always going to be that way. There's very few you can go to. I think obviously Pennsylvania is a great wrestling state, but I don't think the coverage across the state of Pennsylvania, media-wise, even touches Iowa. Iowa is by far the number one state in terms of just media attention and just media everywhere. Always talking about wrestling. You got a great guy like Doug Schwab, who's a rock star up at UNI, and Iowa's, always going to be Iowa, unbelievable, and Iowa State's trying to get back to that level, and so the media is very aware of that.
All right, since you've never actually been on this program before, there's a segment we call Short Time. It's a blast of 10 questions. I don't want you to think about them. I just want your first gut reaction. Are you ready for the challenge?
I'm ready. Yep. If I get stuck, I'll say no comment, because that's always my go-to, no comment. Okay.
Well, it was never a problem on your other show, but we'll talk about that a little off the air. But all right, question one. Who is your favorite person to follow on Twitter?
Oh, my gosh. Ty Wall.
Number two, you win the Olympic gold. What do you have for dinner?
Steak.
Who's the best wrestler people don't talk about?
Lenny Zaleski.
All-time favorite flavor of Gatorade?
The blue kind.
Now, this one might date you a little bit. Your favorite video game of all time?
Pac-Man.
There you go. Number six, your favorite international wrestler, currently or past, present, future, whatever.
Probably Alexia, 136-pounder from Russia back in the day, the 80s.
What move would you rather have in your own arsenal, the John Smith low single or the Jordan Burroughs reshot double?
The Kevin Dresser dump. Right?
That's the best answer. Who's one guy from history you'd like to wrestle, regardless of weight class?
Who would I like to wrestle? Randy Lewis.
Who is your funniest teammate of all time?
Randy Lewis.
And what food spot will you miss the most in Blacksburg?
Wow. What food spot will I miss the most in Blacksburg? West End. That's a dining hall in Blacksburg, across the street from Castle, West End.
You know what? I've eaten there. Yeah, it's where we had our Fargo team camps. We've eaten there. So, all right, you're now out of the short time blast. Coach Dresser, appreciate the time. I know it's been busy as this year, officially your first appearance on Short Time, but numerous appearances on the Mad Talk Podcast Network. So best of luck down the line, and we'll see you in Ames sooner than later.
Thanks, Jason.
And the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, with its first real appearance by Kevin Dresser. I mentioned that throughout the course of the program, but he has been a big part of this network and Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling, the show that really launched the team model along with Old Dominion with this network. And Coach Dresser has been a friend and somebody I've covered for a long time. I mentioned that in another show that we'd always been on the opposite sides of the aisle from one another. When I was at Pocosin, he was coaching at Grundy and Christiansburg. And then when after I graduated from Old Dominion, he is the coach at Virginia Tech. So it's weird to not be, I'm not saying like we're on the same team right now with the show, but it's always been a situation where it's like he's always been at that rival. And it's just kind of straight. That relationship over the years has been rather great. He's always been great to me, even when I was just a wet behind the ears high school journalist interviewing somebody at the state tournament 21 years ago. So, Coach Dresser, the new coach at Iowa State. We're going to see, non-committal, obviously, on the Virginia Tech hire. My personal not preference, I can't endorse anybody for a job, but Tony Roby makes the most sense for a number of reasons. And these points this is not new information. This is not earth-shattering. This is not something I'm breaking here. But he's been a previous head coach. He has coached at good programs. He's also been one of the architects of the Virginia Tech program since the initial hire by Kevin Dresser. So if there's anybody that's ready to be a Division I coach within the framework of what they've got, with the network of recruiting and with the family atmosphere that's been created at Virginia Tech, I think it's Tony Roby. So I'm not gonna complain one bit if they just say, no, you know what, we're not even gonna interview Tony Roby. You're the man. So I would have no issues with that whatsoever. I don't think anybody in Hokie Nation would either. I think one thing is they want to keep him from going places, because there are going to be some Division I openings. There's already 2 that we know of right now. I don't think Tony Roby would be interested in the position at Davidson, but the position at Pittsburgh could have some meat behind it. So there may, every year there's always going to be coaching openings. Some years it's crazy. I don't think we're ever going to see anything like we did in 2000. I don't know, what was it? 2000. What year was it? Was it 06? I don't even know. It was the year. I'll put it this way. I was in the middle of my fantasy baseball draft the same day that Jimmy Zalewski's contract was not renewed and Bobby Douglas, quote unquote, retired. So that was one of the craziest days in the history of college wrestling from a news perspective, is when you get the coaches from Iowa and Iowa State both gone on the same day. I'm trying to do a fantasy baseball draft the old way too. This is like pre-Yahoo. Because most people use Yahoo for fantasy baseball and stuff. So I got my sheets all strewn out the table. I got my jug of Turkey Hill iced tea. At the time I was dipping, so I had a can of chew. I had my Chinese food. I was not consuming them all at the same time, but I was set. I mean, I had it set, man. I had like the third pick. I think I drafted David Wright that year because it was a Virginia guy playing for the Mets, Hickory High School grad. Shout out to Ben Summerlin and the Hickory Hawks down there in Virginia. But it was just, I remember that day. So I don't think we're going to see anything crazy like that. And then, of course, there was the craziness that happened when Kale left Iowa State to go to Penn State. And then we've got, it's just, one domino falls, it always changes the landscape. I'm expecting some programs some big programs to open up this year. I can't really go into the detail there because that information has been fed to me off the record, but I will save that until, I think most of you can read between the lines on there are some programs in the Eastern Seaboard that probably going to see some things change up here. Now, by the time you're listening to this, you may have already seen the qualifier allocations that have come out from NCAA, the NCAA.com. Now, as the time I record this, I have not seen them. So they do come out on Thursday, February 23rd, which is the time we're recording this. It's about 12:35 Central as the time. And this is the last time I'm going to open my email real quick, which is something I never do when I record because you don't want to run too many systems on a computer. So I'm just making sure that there has been nothing released from the NCAA at the time of this recording. So we're going to open it up. Okay. Let's see. There's an email from here. I don't know why people are calling me Mike. Let's go here. Daily Wrestling News. No. Rankings. Towel Tapper. Podcasting. Nope. So nothing yet from the NCAA in regards to that. So that being said, allocation processes is that's going to make things really, really interesting because there's always going to be guys that didn't qualify enough spots to earn a bid. But those will be out by the time you get it. By the time you listen to this, it'll probably be out if you're listening to it right away. Give yourself an hour or two and check Twitter, check the websites. And you can also check if you don't have a chance to read it right now, or if you're listening to this the morning after, Matt Talk Online's daily email wrestling newsletter, which you can sign up for free at matttalkonline.com/news. This is a blast of the day's best wrestling news and stories. It contains press releases. It contains local news stories. It contains national news stories. It contains information from websites, links to podcasts. There is basically so much stuff thrown out there that I collect this stuff, and I've been doing it for years. I've been curating news for years. And then, 2 years ago, I'm like, I'm going to put this into a newsletter. And sure enough, hundreds of people get this every day. You do not want to be left out in the cold. This is just, it's news. It's right there. It's everything you want to do. It basically will set your day up. You're like, okay, I want to read this story from Intermac. Click. I want to read this story from Flow. Click. I want to see this video from IA Wrestle. Click. Oh, here's a story from the Washington Post. Click. Got it taken care of. MattTalkOnline.com/news. Free. Sign up for free. Sign up for free. Sign up for free. I've mentioned the preview guide. You listened to that before the interview with Coach Dresser started. I've talked to you about the free newsletter. Now, here are things that the first thing involved money. The second thing didn't involve money. This third thing is going to involve money again. So if you want, there's a way to get the preview guide as part of a contribution monthly to this program and this network. You can do so by doing that at matttalkonline.com/join the team. There is going to be some swag out there. We got some hats, some glasses, some shirts, the preview guides, the Fargo Almanac, access to my digital sandbox, which is basically where I build all my lists and stuff. Yeah, everything that I use for research, you can have access to. Yep, matttalkonline.com/join the team. That's all I got for today. Oh, man. Heading to Pac-12s on Saturday. I'm trying to duck the snowstorm here in Minnesota. Shovel, get that snowblower filled up. Kiss the wife and the two little girls and go to Cali. I'm going back to Cali, announcing the Pac-12. So I will see you guys out there. If you're in Palo Alto, at the farm, at Stanford, and you like the show, come up, say hello. I love talk wrestling with anybody. So going to see some California friends out there at the Pac-12s. Never been to this tournament, and I'm looking forward to it. So that's all I got for now. Thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always got time for short time.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to matttalkonline.com.